Hi. Hi, everyone. Let's do some adjustment here. Hi. Let me just check the voice. It's okay, huh? Just takes a little bit of time. Okay. Yeah, I have to in charge of the technical side too. Okay. Seems all right. I think it's okay. Now we can start. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Insights with Lily Zhang. And today is 15th of August. It's a Friday, so I wish you a happy weekend. And today I'm going to talk about, you probably already feel that, the crisis. It's not pandemic, the crisis of, sorry, I just turned the voice down a bit, my monitoring. Yeah, maybe you already feel the crisis. We call it supply chain crisis. Also, you might feel the pain of the price increase. We call that inflation or deflation or stagnation. How do I say that? Stagflation. Okay. Let's talk about, because I already feel that, from New Zealand to Australia to from Germany to England to America to China. You know, China already started in northern China. They have many black clouds and some factories just already shut down. So we feel there's some kind of crisis. Just when everybody was talking about we finally out of the pandemic, the economy is recovering. But for my family and friends in Australia and New Zealand, fingers crossed, they're talking about next week, they're going to out of lockdown. So I hope you are well. And we already on the recovering stage, but now we are experiencing this supply chain crisis. What is that? Well, back to before I talk about the supply chain crisis, I need to talk about we already get used to the globalization, and you probably don't know many manufacturers and business they rely on something called it started in 1990s in Japan. It's called just-in-time inventory. That was the 1990s, a new trend. Also, it's being adopted worldwide. That means business and manufacturers they probably they don't keep much inventory. The inventory is basically unlimited, minimal, and they rely on the international trade, especially international logistics, the freight, to supply their raw materials, even including energy. So if you, I just remind you about the business law these days, they just rely on international trade. And of course, we know the pandemic just interrupted the international trade a little bit, but it's not the major problem. The major problem is some kind of, we call it free market, well, the invisible hand of free market. Well, we from the pandemic, is in 18 months or nearly 2 years, it's been interrupted. International economy has been interrupted a bit, and quite a lot, especially international trade, freight, and there will be some business, especially some shipping companies, go out of business. But currently, we almost out of the blue of the pandemic. So there's a renewal of demand. When we talk about crisis, especially economical crisis, it's always about supply and demand. It's always the imbalance of supply and demand. So this crisis is caused mainly on the supply side. Demand side, I just briefly talk about demand side. Yeah, of course, the demand side has increased. After the pandemic, all the pandemic make people's consuming behavior change. On the other hand, the government give out lots of money. It's called that stimulation. So people has more money in hand, but their consuming behavior has changed. They used to, they can get on the airplane, travel a lot, but these days, because of still quite a lot of restrictions, they can't travel, especially the international travel. And also there are some restrictions for last year, there's much less, they go out much less, they stay at home. But when they have money in hand, they, instead of going out for services, going out for travel, they spend more money on goods, especially they shopping online. So if they stay in Europe or America, they probably buy more products online from China, Vietnam, or anywhere in the world. So the demand is strong. But demand side actually is not a major problem because international demand is always, it's not increased too much. Just the consumer behavior be changed a little bit, shifting more from service sector to goods sector. So the demand for goods are high. But on the other hand, the supply side, that's the problem. The problem caused, we'll talk about this. It's actually started from China and started from containers. I already talked about during the pandemic, some shipping companies go out of business. And so it's not much trade and shipping around. But after because China actually come out of the pandemic much earlier than European and other area of the globe. The reason I'm not going to talk too much because China probably, the government decide they can't lock down for a long time. They would rather just force the factories to open earlier. That was an older story. But anyway, China started recovering recover manufacturing much earlier. So they started trading, they started shipping all those. Of course, China has been 10 years the manufacturing base of the world. So early this year, Chinese goods started shifting to all over the world. So there's quite a lot of demand for containers. So, but the other parts, like especially in Europe and America, their manufacturing sector hasn't really started yet. Also, the government support factories business. So many businesses still not open. So when Chinese goods arrive in America or European ports, they lack of equally amount of goods shipping back to China. So that means many container ship companies, they move the goods from China to Europe or to America. But those ships, they have to wait for a long time just out of the port. That's why we see the congestion or traffic jam on the sea or out of the port. They don't have, because old days when they ship goods from China, they can ship goods from European goods or American goods back to China immediately. They don't wait. But these days, well, last couple of months or quite a while, they don't have enough goods to shifting back to China. So those ships, they wait. And but they can't afford to wait for too long. So they calculated. That's everything business all about calculation. If they go back to China and moving more goods from China, they'll make their trip much more profitable than just waiting out of the port, European port. So more ship go back to China and move more Chinese goods to other countries. Well, when they go back, they just go empty boat or empty ship. That makes the containers in China just have a shortage. They don't have enough container. And then they just, Chinese company, they have to pay more price on containers. In 1 year, the container price in China, from China, the route to America or Europe, just tripled. So that's the cause of the container crisis. The container just becomes so expensive. And then it's become so expensive, and those ships, they can carry empty containers back to China, and they'll make more money than waiting for European or American goods back to China. That's just the whole scenario, just cause the container price go up. But on the other hand, European goods and American goods, they short of containers because most of containers go back to China. That's why we can see this. This is the invisible hand of the market. If it's just driven by profit, that means most of containers will stay in China rather than going to other countries. Well, I think the crisis will continue for a while until the other countries lifted all the restrictions and manufacturers. Actually, on the European side and the American side, manufacturers, they experience the shortage of supply because they facing the price increase for the freight, the price increase for the containers. They short of major components or parts. The car manufacturers in Germany short of semiconductors, and computer companies short of chips, because it's the freight, the logistic cost is so high. Also, their traffic jam out of the port. We can see in America, there are some containers stay on the port for a long time and nobody even open that. And also in some port, containers open, but they short of truck drivers. That's the case in UK. That's the case in UK. They just don't have enough truck drivers. Some people blame that's the Brexit. Of course, that's probably part of that. Another side is the supply chain crisis of the containers. So the supply chain crisis is caused by logistic crisis, the manufacturing crisis, also the labor shortage crisis. 3 factors cause the global supply chain crisis. Well, on the other side, another major factor contribute to this supply chain crisis is making another one perfect storm is the energy crisis. We're facing, in the UK, from news we can see the UK petrol stations empty. They're not empty. They full of cars waiting to pump oil or petrol into their cars. And northern China, many manufacturers, they facing cut off or blackout. They short of coal and petrol. That's just to power the factories. Energy crisis, of course, oil, petrol, coal, they all need logistic. You need pipes or oil tanks or shipment from one place to another place. So the container crisis, the logistic crisis is add up together with energy crisis. But energy crisis, I think, has got deeper roots and also more problem. That's what I'm going to talk about. We're having the supply chain crisis. We have the energy crisis. Yeah, the in Germany, Europe, I think the petrol, the gas, and the coal prices just tripled. People paying much more, and they're facing a cold winter. They probably will have to have forced blackouts. So there is a major energy crisis, and they fed up together with manufacturers will face the supply shortage and energy shortage. They'll increase the shortage of the supply. So let's just add up the supply chain crisis. Now I'm going to go back to the energy crisis. Energy crisis, one side is caused by the supply chain and international trade. I think, this is my personal opinion, I think especially European energy crisis mainly is caused by the green crisis or the green policy. Europe, like Germany, it's really promote the green policy. That's why their Green Party has got a large support, and they probably will get into power this time and control a smaller part of the government. But the policy will influence quite largely. About the green energy, when I talk about the green energy, it's mainly formed by solar and wind. Germany, for example, has basically shut down all its coal mines in a very short time and nuclear power plants. And Germany is intended to be CO2 neutral in 2030 or something like that. Basically, once based on all its energy supplied by solar and wind, all those renewable energy. And Germany is a major industrial country. I don't think that's very smart. Of course, German government is leading the country. I think the lack of vision, lack of innovation, and mainly influenced by green ideology and green policy. And those green energy and renewable energy fundamentally is driven by political forces and short of honest debate and scientific research. To my personal opinion, I'm not an expert on this green energy or renewable energy, but I definitely think it's a lack of open debate. Because when we talk about green energy and renewable energy, it's still in a not very mature stage, still got many fundamental problems, the renewable energy. The major ones, the costs, the storage, and are they really clean? Are they really environmentally friendly? Just be honest, the cost of renewable energy is very high compared with petrol and coal. Oh, don't mention nuclear power. The solar panels and especially the initial establishment of wind power and solar power, very high cost. In Europe, it's probably compared with petrol or coal power, or electricity, that's tripled. So to set up those renewable energy plants, very costly. Second, wind and solar, they are not reliable energy. The sun doesn't shine 24 hours. The wind doesn't blow 24 hours. So they are not consistent. So sometimes if it's sunny day or windy day, they produce lots of power. But rainy days or windless days, they probably produce very little or no power. What are you going to do when those shortage days? So people think, well, at the moment we're just using storage, battery. Storage is the battery and backup power. Backup power basically coal and petrol and gas. But those backup power management and use backup power still cost, the cost is high. Also, it's still quite, they are much more reliable than the renewable energy itself. So basically, those renewable energy are still based on the traditional, conventional energy supply to stabilize them. And on the other hand, storage, how to store those energy, because they are not consistent, how to store them, that's a big problem. At the moment, we rely on battery, and battery is, it's just like, I really think battery is a joke. We just need more research on that. Just like electric cars. Electric cars, they look clean. They don't produce polluted air. But the battery, electric cars battery cost tremendous of electricity. And how to dispose those battery, that's another major problem. Also, to produce battery, doesn't matter if it's for car or for storage of the renewable energy, it requires so much heavy metal, rare earth as well. So the cost of the resources from the earth is tremendous. How many people calculate the cost of manufacturing the resources costs to manufacturing car batteries and batteries to store renewable energy? It's just, this the whole Green Deal. There's a term called the new Green Deal order, or no, the new Green Deal order. That's just totally, I'm not going to say that's rubbish, but it's totally political. Yeah, they don't calculate the environmental damage caused by the batteries. They not calculate the resources used, the electricities used to produce batteries. And they only looking at the outcome of the electric cars, the outcome of renewable energy. I think those renewable energy, the technology is not mature enough to produce cost-effective, environmentally friendly, and also save the resources of the earth. I think that's a very dangerous direction for the green energy, for the electric cars to go. It's not driven by science, by research. It's driven by political power. Yeah, that's why we're seeing, the subsidies, so much money. Every government is subsidize the renewable energy industry and electric car industry. I think that's doesn't make sense. Of course, I totally support to protect our environment, to protect our earth, but how and when, and who's calculating those costs and efficiency of those renewable energy and electric cars? Nobody telling the truth. The government is just politically try to get green parties into power. And who's paying that? Average people, the taxpayers. They're paying higher price they pay more tax on carbon emission. They pay higher tax on environmental protection. They pay higher tax on anything environmentally related. And they pay higher price for energy, for goods. That's why the inflation rate is so much higher than before. In Germany, it's already 4%. It's the highest in 30 years. The inflation rate is high, but the production rate is low. So we're facing inflation, also we're facing stagnation. So who's calculating the economic cost? Who's paying for all those costs? Not politicians, not mainstream media, not those Greta Thunberg. She's just a teenager. She knows nothing about economy. Well, she's in, she's Swedish. She's Swedish, yeah. If Swedish average homes lack of power to warm their house, they are going to, how can they produce enough green energy to warm your house? That's the fundamental problem. Well, so to my opinion, maybe I am politically incorrect. So currently, this supply chain crisis is caused by maybe supply and demand, but the energy crisis fundamentally is caused by policy, the green policy crisis. I just think, for those environmental issues and also these costs and energy just need more open and honest discussion, need more scientific attitude, and less driven by political power. Well, okay, it's getting colder here in Germany, and I hope this winter we will not have blackout and cold homes for most people. Okay, thank you for watching my program, and that's it for today. And again, wish you a happy weekend. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.